Last week we began a series called The Hyper-Connected Life because we are all hyper-connected. Not necessarily hyper-connected to one another as much as we are hyper-connected to machines and devices to a large degree that connect us to information that comes to us in all different shapes and sizes and all different times. And that information then kind of is a wonderful thing, and the technology that we live with is a wonderful thing in so many ways, and we've talked about that. We talked about how great it is to be able to keep in touch with people from all over the world for free. We've talked about how great all that information is when we're trying to make an informed decision. We've talked about how great it is to be able to communicate to a large number of people in a very short amount of time with the technology that we have. It's got lots of amazing uses, and I just want to again make it clear that this is not an anti-technology series. After church last week, I heard lots of comments like, "Ooh, you're on your phone," or "Ooh, you're looking at a screen." And I mean, this is not a screens are bad series, okay? This is not at all trying to say get rid of technology or completely cut yourself off. It's simply, the point of the series is that technology is changing us. And it's changing the way we think. It's changing the way we relate to one another. It's changing the way we work. It's changing the way we relate to God. And we're really just starting to scratch the surface on technology's kind of reach into our lives. We have no idea what we'll be experiencing in the next 1 to 2 years in terms of new devices or new ways information is going to be coming to us. And so the point of the series is we need to stop and kind of just assess and say, how far will technology reach into my life? We need to develop a theology of technology. We need to determine what we will and what we won't do and how we will limit technology's reach into our lives. It's about being aware. And so last week, I kind of recommended that all of us take 1 to 3 days and just kind of log all of your interface with any kind of a screen, a television screen, a movie screen, a phone screen, a tablet screen, a computer screen. Just log it and just kind of get a kind of picture of where you are in terms of technology. I didn't ask you to do anything with that information. Don't change anything. Just kind of log. Get a picture. How much screen time do you get per day? What are you doing during that screen time? Now, I'll just say, I know nobody was excited about this assignment. Nobody kind of left and said, "Oh, yay, I'm going to write down everything I do for 2 or 3 days." Nobody did that. But if we want to develop a personal theology of technology, this is where we have to start. We have to take an assessment and get a picture of where we are. So, 5 of your fellow Newdayers were willing to not only log their screen time, but they're also willing to share their experience and their learnings and be somewhat transparent. So would you please welcome with me Katie and Matt and Ed Ray and Wendy. Come on up, you guys. Maybe I'll sit over here. Let's just begin by introducing yourself to everybody, and we'll start down here with Ed Ray. Just say your name, what you do for a living, and what is your kind of normal interaction with technology? How does technology kind of impact your day-to-day life?
Okay. My name's Ed Ray Santos. I'm a resident chaplain at Littleton Adventist Hospital, and I use technology mainly for work and sports updates on the iPhone.
Okay. All right.
And texting.
Okay.
I'm Katie McTavish, and I'm a sophomore in high school, and I typically use technology I use my phone for texting and social media, and then I use the computer and stuff for homework.
Hi, Matt Kelly. I work at DirecTV. I manage a network operations center. Very tough to be here sometimes. I'm on the phone from the time I wake up till the time I go to bed, and I am at my computer screen from about 8 in the morning until about 7:30 at night, daily.
I'm Wendy Fisher. I am currently a stay-at-home mom, and so I use basically social media, emails, texting, kind of thing.
I'm Matt Slavinsky, and I'm in sales and marketing, prescription medication, and I interface with my iPad most of the day with work. It's a company iPad. I have a laptop that's a company-issued laptop that I interface a little bit in the evening with for business, but most of that is personal use. and I have a cell phone that I use for texting. But most of my time is spent through my iPad during the day.
All right. So one of the things we talked about last week was screen time. But before we get there, I think I'm going to ask you the phone question, because one of the things we asked last week was, what's the first word that kind of comes to your mind if you realize you left your phone at home and you're not going to have it the rest of the day? And I kind of asked it rhetorically with you guys last week, but I want to ask you guys seriously, what's the first word that comes to your mind when you realize that you kind of left your phone at home? Go ahead.
Lost. Completely lost.
I'm lost. All right. Others?
Fear.
Fear? Okay.
Yeah.
Probably disorganization and panic.
Panic?
Definite panic. Lose control of my body senses. I'm shaky, nauseous, dizzy, literally.
Okay. Matt, what was your word?
I say to myself, it's okay.
It's okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, all right. We have a clear winner in the front now. All right. So, no. Yeah. So we talked about screen time, and I asked you all, before you started logging, just kind of take a guess in terms of what you think your screen time is, and then kind of log it, and then kind of compare. And just to say, again, screen time is not like a golf score, like the lowest score wins. This isn't about oh, yay, I'm at an hour, because a lot of times we have to interface with computers for different reasons, and so it's not about the lowest score wins. But what were some of the things you learned based on kind of your estimates, and then the things you learned through the actual logging? What did that look like? How about for you, Wendy?
Well, I guessed 3.5 hours, I think, was my guess. And I was right at 4, so I was like, yes, so close to my real time.
Good.
But that was still a lot. Really.
All right. How about for you, Matt?
Yeah, I think I guessed around 11, and I was pretty close. I mean, I found myself on the computer for about 10 hours, but then if you add in iPad, iPhone, TV, it's around 12, 13 hours a day.
Okay.
Which is great.
So if you take you two together, that's the national average of about 8. So there we go. You guys are balancing each other out. Anybody else have any learnings?
I estimated 8 hours beforehand, and after doing this logging exercise, I came close to 8 hours, 7.5. Most of it was with work and charting patients and administrative work, and then sports updates.
Yeah, okay. So it doesn't seem like anybody was really surprised. You seem to have kind of an idea of what your screen time was, and it wasn't much different from that, right? Okay. So what about learnings? What were the things that you learned during this interface, during this logging of internet? What are some of the things that stood out to you?
I think one thing that stood out for me was how, over time with technology and everything, that we just kind of adapt, right? Where humans are very good at adapting. And when I first started, yes, I'm kind of young, but even when I started my career, these things weren't out. The mobile phones weren't out. We had pagers, and it's just amazing how we've adapted, and it's just part of your life.
Okay.
And you just kind of go with it.
All right. Other learnings. Matt?
I think for me, it all kind of ran together up until the time that I started logging and my information in. While I do spend a lot of time on a business aspect with interfacing with mostly the iPad, I thought I spent a lot of time on my laptop business-wise, and I don't. Most of it is social. It's not interacting in chat rooms or Facebook. It's keeping up with world events.
Okay.
And I shared in my link that I'll see one link and I'll hit the link and go to something else and keep reading. It just kind of brings me in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the take-home message for me was, and I think, believe it or not, I think the climate's got something to do with it for me, which is really surprising, is I think the days that are longer, I spend more time outside doing what I want to do in the garden. And during the wintertime, I spend more time on my laptop because I like going outside. So I get bored. I think, I don't share my time with anyone else. And because of that, I can sit there for 3 hours doing something without being interrupted. And so that's what I learned.
Okay, thanks. How about you, Katie?
For me, I learned how much time I actually waste on my phone and stuff like that, and texting and social media. And although I do have to use the computer and technology for schoolwork and stuff on a regular basis, I realize how much time that I waste just doing stuff that I probably could be using that time to be growing my relationships with other people and with God and other things. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think you said something about maybe how many times you checked your phone. Was that a surprise for you?
Yeah, that was a big shock. I checked my phone like 80 times a day or something
So
like
just
that.
kind of look at it.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, that's a ton. So, yeah.
All right. Edre?
I have a appreciation for technology. I was speaking to a nurse recently, and she's been in the field for some time, and she told me that due to Meditech, a program that we use at work at the hospital, it allows functionality and it speeds up the work and the process for the medical staff. And it never really dawned on me until I talked to her about it, on how technology is very useful. And then the other thing that I learned for myself, I'd like to challenge myself to really limit my the extracurricular stuff, or the stuff that I could live without, like sports updates. I mean, how many times are you needing updates for? Because with all honesty, it's just the same stuff said 12 different ways.
So if you cut that in half,
So,
you'd probably
yeah.
get the same information, but
Yeah.
have more time.
Mhm.
All right, great. All right. Wendy, anything stand out to you in terms of learnings from the experience?
Yeah, I was actually surprised. Two things really surprised me. One, I was Facebooking my neighbor, and I probably should just go over and talk to her. Be a better Christian, better friend. I'm just Facebooking with her, and she's right next door. She's my neighbor. And then the other thing was when as at day 3, and I realized how much I was on, I was trying to start limiting that because it was getting so tiring, and some of it was nonsense. And then I looked up, and my kids are on the iPads, both of mine. So I was like, well, they're seeing that from me. So if I can put down the computer and the phone, I think they'll put down the iPads, and we can go outside and play and live a healthier, happier life.
Okay. So, yeah, let's just kind of end with that question. I mean, based on what you've learned, I mean, if you were to change anything moving forward, did anything kind of stand out to you, say, I would like this to be different in the future for anybody?
Okay, I would definitely like to cut out a lot of like social media and things like that and try to not spend so much time doing that so I can like focus on other things and like my relationship with God more.
Okay. Other kind of hoped for?
I think I want to, when I'm not at work, just stop looking at my phone, right? And I'm always watching to see what's happening, making sure that my team is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then chiming in. So I need to force myself to kind of let them do their job, trust them, and if they need something, they'll call me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Edwin?
I believe this encouraged me to be far more attentive as far as what I'm doing with technology, because it's easy for us to just do it so casually that we don't know how much time we're burning on social things, for example. So that's what I take from this exercise, is just to be more attentive and work on the balance.
Okay, good. Matt, any other takeaway for you?
Just a last thought for me is I think it has made me realize I do need to keep up with world events, because that's how I can communicate things with people. But do I need to spend 2 hours in the evening doing it? I mean, for me, it's helped me realize that God is in control. And then tomorrow morning, He's still in control.
All right, so it's a matter of quantity, sounds like.
Yes.
All right. How about you, Wendy?
My phrase takeaway is live life in the real world, not the cyber world. So mentally tell myself that when I start to get on the computer and I look at my kids not being outside.
Yeah, that's good. You had mentioned something. One of the things you said was after doing this exercise, it kind of gave you more before you thought about logging off for a short period of time. It was terrifying, but now it's kind of exciting. Yeah. What did that for you?
I guess seeing what it was like to get off for a little while. So I did kind of unplug a little bit yesterday and the day before, and played with my kids, was really attentive with them, and I got a lot out of that. So I feel like, the next time I take a day in the mountains, I don't always have to have my phone constantly checking it. Leave it in the car, enjoy the time with my family and my friends.
That's great. Thank you. Well, it took a lot for these guys to come up here and kind of be transparent, so let's just thank them. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Social media is great. It connects you to the world and the people you love. You can chat with your family or share a meal with friends and watch cute little cats do unbelievable things.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box. But there are times when social media can get in the way of the real world. Remember that? It's the thing that happens when you run out of battery. That's why we've developed the Social Media Guard. It takes the social out of media and puts it back into your life. Let's see how it works.
Funny stuff, right? Funny because we know it's true, right? Thank you, Coca-Cola, for putting that video together for us. Today we're kind of turning our attention to specifically the effect of technology on our relationships with one another and our relationship with God. Steve Allman is a writer in his mid-40s, and he's a bit old-fashioned when it comes to technology. He doesn't like the impact that he sees it having on the world, particularly in public places, and the way kind of people interact with each other in public places, this increased isolation. And so he decided to do an experiment. He lives in Boston, and he said he was going to walk through the streets of Boston, his hometown, for 2 days and intentionally interact with every stranger he came in contact with, especially those who were glued to their smartphones. And so he writes about what this experiment was like, and I'll read you an extended snippet. He says, a drizzly December morning was probably not the best time to launch Operation Talk to Strangers, particularly at a bus stop. Of the 12 people on hand, 9 were staring into smartphones. I approached one young man in a wool hat with antlers. He looked, shall we say, the least sullen. Great hat, I said. Silence. I pointed at the hat. My son has one with dog ears. He'll put it on sometimes and sniff around, like a dog. Cool, the kid murmured, but he didn't look up. In fact, in a gesture that would soon become familiar to me, he actually moved his face a little closer to his device and began furiously tapping with his thumbs. I moved on to an older woman sitting next to a suitcase on rollers. Before I could actually say anything to her, she turned away and smiled apologetically and looked at her phone. By now, the other people at the bus stop had taken note of the situation, and a silent ripple of panic seemed to kind of pass through them. They began to regard me with nervous sideways glances because I now was, in the eyes of our little social unit, the potentially mentally ill person who wanted to talk to people. I had a sudden urge to address the group. Now listen here, people, I wanted to say. I am not insane. I'm just seeking a little human contact, the way people used to in the olden days. But this would make me seem crazier. It was a sad little moment. Yes, I was frustrated and indignant, but more than anything, I felt lonely in the middle of 12 people. Lonely in the middle of a crowd. That seems to be the new kind of norm in society. We are simultaneously more connected and more isolated at the same time than we have ever been before. Perhaps the best way to say it is that we are alone together. And it wasn't always like this. I mean, even just a few years ago, talking to or striking up a conversation with a stranger was considered to be a polite thing to do. Talking on a phone in public was considered to be an extremely rude thing to do. But smartphones have changed all of that. You see, because we don't talk into a smartphone, we stare into them. Right? We stare into this little screen and we send messages with our thumbs and we flick our fingers here and there on the screen. Physically we may be in the room, but emotionally, psychologically, we are somewhere else. We are there, but we are not here. And we've all experienced this. Either we've been like the only person in the room and we look around and everybody is looking into a little rectangular screen, eyes wrapped, thumbs flying, and we realize we are really the only one in the room. We are alone together. Or we have been the person staring into the screen, completely oblivious to the people all around us as we are looking at our friends' most recent pictures from their vacation, or we're shopping for some new app, or we're scrolling some timeline, looking for something to kind of catch my attention, anything to keep me from having to talk to the people in the room. I mean, we send the message to strangers and to friends in our family, keep your distance. I may be here, but I'm really there. And that's really the false promise of technology. Omnipresence. Technology promises us that we can kind of be like God in all places at all time, that we could actually be here, but also be there, that we can kind of transform or send our pixelated self through cyberspace to be somewhere else. I could be there talking to my friend through text rather than being here talking to you. I could somehow be there shopping for a new gadget on Amazon, rather than being here looking you in the eye. I could be there looking at all the interesting things my friends are doing on Facebook, rather than being here looking at and acknowledging you. And behind this new behavior, this new social behavior, is an unspoken belief that there is better than here. There is better than here. That's why I want to be there. I don't want to be here. But I want to know who said that there is better than here, because I don't buy it. I, for one, don't want to live in a world where people don't talk to each other face to face. I don't want to see our world become a society of people who are alone together. I don't want to walk around in a kind of a techno bubble of private space, at least not most of the time. I want to live. I want to engage with people. I want to feel alive as I kind of look someone in their eye and hear their story. And so we need to come, if that's going to happen, we need to come to terms with this really profound truth that here is better than there. Here is better than there. Say it with me. Here is better than there. You actually sound like you believe that. That's awesome. Here is better than there. Sure, there is a time to respond to the text and surf Facebook and shop online. There's a time to do all those things. But when we are with people at a gathering, or when we are at the dinner table with our family, when we are approached by a person who wants to look us in the eye and engage and talk, whether that be friend or family or stranger, here is better than there. Again, not only, you got it. You can keep saying it. So not only do we have a hard time with here is better than there, but we also have a hard time really being present in the now. Not only just space, but also in time. Because we seem to also have this belief that then is better than now. Right? We have a hard time being present in the now and experiencing something now because we're so focused on then. And so that's why we are such documenters, right? We got to document everything because we believe then is better than now. And so we take pictures of everything. When something beautiful happens or something extraordinary occurs, what is our new normal? Where is my camera? Where is my phone? I must take a picture. I got to get the video rolling. A beautiful sunset, take a picture of it. Put a filter on it. Post it, right? A baby is smiling. Where's my phone? Quick, I've got to get a picture of it. Why do we do this? There's lots of reasons, but to a large degree it's because we believe then is better than now. We want a record of it then rather than experiencing it now. We want a picture to tell others where we were or what we were doing or how much fun we were having. But we spend so much of our time taking pictures and taking video and getting the thing framed right and getting the lighting just right that in the end, we have to really wonder, did we actually have a good time or just get a really good picture? We live so much of our lives through 3-inch screens versus experiencing what's happening around us. And again, there's a time to take a picture and there's a time to roll the video. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with taking pictures, but we miss so much of life because we're living it through a 3-inch screen or maybe, if we're lucky, a 4-inch screen. Then isn't better than now. Now is better than then. Can you say that with me? Now is better than then. That's right. Now is better than then. If we want to be in the present, if we want to live in the now, if we want to experience more of life, we need to be willing to be in the now rather than worrying about the then. But I want to remember what I've done. I want to remember what I've experienced. That's why I take all those pictures, and I get that. But studies have shown if you really want to remember what you experienced, put your camera away. For instance, I recently heard about a study that was done on people who were sent into a museum, and a group of them took pictures of everything they saw, and another group didn't have cameras. They just kind of experienced everything. Next day, they were quizzed about what they saw. The people who didn't have cameras remembered almost everything. The people who were taking pictures didn't remember much of anything other than the fact that they got some good pictures. And so if I want to remember the fact that I went to the museum, I'm going to take a picture outside the museum and then put my phone away and go in and enjoy the museum. Or if I want to remember that I had this great dinner with friends, I'll take a picture with my friends at the restaurant and then put the phone away and enjoy my time with my friends. Because now is better than then. Here is better than there. One other area that technology is really making it hard for us to be present, not just with one another, it's with God. You know, spending time alone with God, a God that we can't see but we know is there, has always been hard. But who wouldn't say that it's become even harder in an age of information and constant technology? When we go and we try to get alone with God and we want to pray or we want to read the Bible, it's so easy to, get constantly distracted because our devices are beeping and they're summoning us and they're buzzing and we're wondering, who's that? And what do they need? And maybe I should go do that. Or even when we turn the device off or remove it from the room, it becomes very easy to be there rather than here wondering what's waiting for us, what texts are coming in, who needs me on email, who's liking my Facebook status, all these different things. It's very hard to be here with God because I want to be there with the information and with technology. Or what happens when we attend worship is kind of the same thing that happens anymore when we attend any kind of a meeting or any kind of an event. Sure, we want to go to that meeting, we want to go to that event, we want to go to church, but the new normal is to only focus on the things that interest us, right? And so we go, but if something isn't holding my attention, then I'm going to tune out and I'm going to go back into my screen. I'm going to go back into my device. We want to be present, but only on our terms and only on a limited basis and in limited doses. And so we find ourselves in church focusing maybe for a while, but then kind of tuning out and going to our device and going to Facebook and texting our friends or checking the weather. And then occasionally we'll check back into maybe what's going on, the song that's being sung or whatever that guy up front is saying or whatever. But then we kind of tune out again. And the whole time, God may be trying to speak to us, but we can't hear because we're not here. We're there. We're not in the now. We're in the then. Because I believe there is better than here, and then is better than now. So what do we do? I mean, do we just continue down this road with no thought of how it's affecting our relationships with one another or how it's affecting our relationship with God? I don't think so. Because I think all of us, we want to live life to the full. I mean, that's why we're here, right? That's what Jesus said he offers us. Abundant life, life to the full. And so as we try to answer this question, so what do? I think we have to come to the answer, learn from Jesus. And you knew we had to go there, right? I mean, learn from Jesus. Doesn't that just sound like a great idea? Learn from Jesus. And you're like, well, what can Jesus teach us about dealing with technology? The Bible says that Jesus was tempted in every way as we are. And while Jesus may not have had to deal with smartphones and Twitter feeds, Jesus knew what it was like to feel the pull of culture on him to get him off mission and to be something other than who he was. Jesus knew that. He knew, and let me just say, even if you're not a Jesus person and you wouldn't consider yourself to be a Christian, we can all learn from Jesus about how to be present with the people who are around us and how to be present with God. So if you have a Bible, let me invite you to find Luke chapter 5. It was early in Jesus' ministry, and he was enjoying incredible popularity. I mean, right from the get-go, his teaching was like nothing they had ever heard. People said he taught with authority. He was healing sick people. He was giving people freedom by casting out demons. And so because of the amazing things he was doing, just crowds of people were coming to hear him. And he was constantly surrounded by these crowds. And it got to the point where when Jesus would do something or like heal somebody, he would tell them, please, don't tell anybody. Keep this between us. But still, the crowds would continue to grow. And we get to verse 15 of Luke chapter 5, and Luke puts it like this. It says, yet the news about him spread all the more. He had just healed somebody. He had just told them, don't tell anybody. Yet the news about him spread all the more. So that crowds of people came to hear him. Just imagine that. Crowds of people coming to hear you. Your teaching is so amazing. The wisdom pouring from your mouth is so awesome that crowds of people are just coming and hanging on every word. That's what it was like for Jesus. Just crowds of people around him. Talk more. You're brilliant. You speak with authority. We love what you say. Keep talking. And they came to be healed of their sicknesses. More than just loving his teaching, they loved what he could do for them. Heal us. You have something that we need. Make us whole. We are broken. Make us whole, Jesus. So he's got all these crowds around him. He's got all these people clamoring to hear what he has to say. All these people wanting to be healed. The very next verse says this. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Doesn't that just sound wonderful in an age of technology? But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. 2 verses, but what a paradoxical passage. Really, Jesus, he's incredibly popular. He's being inundated with people coming to him. But he continues to discipline himself to remain true to who he is by being present with the people when he needed to be present with the people, and then separating himself and being present with God when it was time to be with God. Just think about what the emotions Jesus had to be feeling with that popularity, because popularity can change you. And popularity is a lot like what we deal with in the internet, right? We've got all of our followers and all of our fans, and we put our perfect cyber avatar out there, with just the right pictures and just the right quips that make us kind of look just the way we want to look. And then we have people come to us and tell us how wise we are or how clever we are, or how good we look in that picture, right? It can kind of start to mess with your mind that you want more of that, and you keep going back for more, and you kind of get sucked in. That's what Jesus was going through. Jesus was so popular that it would be like today, it's like his email box was totally full. He had millions of likes on every Facebook status. Every one of his teaching videos had gone viral. Jesus was like the center of the spotlight in society. And that has a way of changing a person. But Jesus wouldn't let it change him. He wouldn't let it get him off of mission. You just get the sense when you read that when he was with people, he was totally with people. He was ministering to them. He was caring for them. He was listening to them. He didn't make it about him. He kept it about them. He was engaging. And more than that, when he was present with God, he didn't let his popularity change his purpose. He knew that his purpose was stay connected with the Father, and so he stayed connected with the Father. He did the things in his life that he had to do to kind of set boundaries and be disciplined so that he can get away from the crowds and just get one-on-one with his Father and listen for him. Didn't let his busyness change that. He didn't let the needs of other people around him change that. And he would just withdraw. But to do that, again, he had to set some boundaries to be sure he was connecting where he needed to connect, with people and with people. And I just wonder, was it hard for Jesus to do that? Was it hard for Jesus to kind of withdraw the lonely places and pray when all of that need was out there and all those people clamoring to hear him talk? Was that hard to step out of that? To get away from that kind of constant feed? With all the demands on his time, with all the accolades coming his way, with all the success he was experiencing, healing people. Was it hard to pull away and be present with his Father? I don't know. We'll never know if it was hard for him or not. But we do know that he had to set boundaries. Jesus had to set boundaries in his life in order to be present with people and to be present with God, to keep from being distracted by the crowds and the applause. And so let's talk about boundaries. Because clearly Jesus had them in his life. Boundaries. Just the ability to say, I know the world and cultural dynamics are pulling at me, and so I will limit its reach into my life. I will withdraw, as Jesus withdrew. What might it look like for us to live with boundaries around our use of technology? The way Jesus was able to maintain boundaries in his life. I mean, how do we live in such a way that allows us to be present with people when we're with people, and allows us to be present with God when we're with God? Well, I'd like to share some ideas about boundaries as we kind of wrap things up this morning. But before we do, let me just say a few words about boundaries. First of all, I know nobody likes boundaries, right? We don't like the word. I mean, basically it comes from being bound up, right? I mean, we are binding ourselves. We are putting ourselves within certain limits. And we don't like being limited at anything. I mean, we want to be free to roam, but we all have boundaries. We have boundaries in our relationships. Boundaries create healthy space to be free. Right? And so if we are going to learn to live in a hyper-connected society with technology and still be present with people and be present with God, boundaries are going to have to become a normal part of our language with technology. But let me also say that boundaries are very different from rules. So let's not get the two confused. A rule is something that is a hard and a fast line that applies to everyone in the same way. So a speed limit would be like a rule. Everybody needs to stay under this particular speed limit. But boundaries are something that we set individually based on my need, based on my heart, based on my interaction with technology. So my boundary may be very different from your boundary. And this is why we started this series by kind of getting a look at where is technology's reach into my life and into my relationships. How am I using it? I got to get a picture of that personally so I can say, well, here is where it's affecting my ability to be present so that I can set boundaries personally around that. Right? So we're not talking here, when we talk about boundaries, we're not talking about sin, we're not talking about right and wrong, we're not talking about moral and immoral. We're talking about we all need personal boundaries because we all know our hearts and we all know where we get distracted and are weak, right? So, and as we talk about boundaries, you may want to take notes in your bulletin. There's a little thing that you could take kind of to put together a plan. Looks like this. There's 2 in every bulletin. Maybe you want to share one with people around you. Maybe you want to take some notes of the things we're talking about and put together your own plan as you consider these things. But we have always had boundaries with technology in our family and in our home. 12 years ago, we got rid of cable television. That was just a boundary that we set for our family. We weren't going to have that in our house. We've always had a no technology at the dinner table rule. There's no phones, there's no iPads, there's no looking at screens at the dinner table, right? We've had always a rule, no devices in the kids' rooms when they're sleeping, because I know those texts go all night, right? And they wake up and they're like looking all harried and like, why didn't you get any sleep? Because their phone was buzzing all night long. So we have a rule in our house, all technology gets charged downstairs while we sleep, and we sleep upstairs away from the technology. We have just different, of course, no texting and driving for the sake of safety. These are boundaries in our home. But about 6 weeks ago, as I was getting ready for the series, and I kind of did the whole logging thing, I saw there were some areas in my life that needed further boundaries. And it wasn't really about being present with people, because I thought I was doing pretty good there, or being present with God. I thought I was doing pretty good there. But it's really more about distraction in my life overall. And so one of the boundaries I set up was in my car. I had already had a no texting and driving rule, but I had to go to a no technology in the car at all rule, right? Except for a phone call, I am not looking at my phone. I'll talk on the phone, I'll make a phone call, but other than that, I don't check text messages, I don't see who just texted me, I don't look for email, even at stoplights. Because here's what I found I was doing was I'll get to a stoplight and the text came, about half a mile ago, and I'm just going to look and see what it is. Well, I can answer that really quick, right? So you start trying to answer that text, and the light turns green, and we've all been behind that guy, right? It's like, hello, the light's green. If this person's like finishing their text message. Or you say, I could just finish this while I'm driving, right? And so you're pulling away from the stoplight and trying to text, and you're like doing all this distracted driving. I just decided for me, I needed to say no technology while I drive. Have I been perfect? Nearly. But no, okay. But really my car is becoming this safe place of like no technology. It's like a technology-free zone, and it's like a sanctuary. Or one of the biggest boundaries I had to set had to do with one of my biggest distractions, and that had to do with email. Before I was sitting in front of the computer 4 or 5 hours a day writing this or putting this document together. And, I would just leave my Outlook open and emails would just come in and I'd be like, oh, great, a distraction, yay. So you close that thing down, then you go to this email and you take care of this and that will lead to this issue and that issue. And pretty soon, 15 minutes have passed and you get back to what you're doing before, then another email comes in and it was just not working. And so what I did was I said, I'm going to put 2 blocks of time together, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, 30 to 45 minutes. That's when I'll open Outlook. And that's when I'll address emails. And other than that, Outlook gets closed down and I'm not looking at that until the next window comes, and that has just done incredible things for me to be able to kind of focus better when I'm working and not be so easily distracted. And so now on Thursdays, my main writing days, I'll just shut down the internet on my computer. I'll just hit that little Wi-Fi thing, turn it off, and just go completely offline, and it's just given me the ability to focus much better on the things that I need to focus on. What are some other boundaries that might kind of help us connect with the people around us? Let's just talk about some different ideas, and then we'll close. What about this? What about setting a technology-free time every day? Just a bubble in your day every day where you say, you know what? I am going analog. No screens, no technology. Only 12% of people do this. So if you do this, you will be a cut above. You will be in like the 1 out of the 8 people who do this. Just say, you know what, for a half hour, an hour, 2 hours, whatever, every day, 5 to 7, every day, I'm just going to put all the devices away. I'm going to get out and do something that gives me life, go outside, look at a tree, look at a flower. I'm just going to go analog, right? Or what about this? How about not being so hyper-responsive? What we do is that we get a text, we get a chime, we get an email, we're like, woo, I want to get my next buzz, I want to get my next, stimulation, who's talking to me, and so we just immediately just rush to our phone and we shoot right back, and we just train the people in our lives that if we don't respond in the next 30 seconds, like call the police or 911 or something must be wrong, and then we just tether ourselves to technology. We're just totally tethered to it. It's like a leash. We call them cordless, but we're totally corded to these little devices, and so why not just discipline yourself, set a boundary. You know what? The thing just buzzed, but I'm going to finish doing what I'm doing, and I'll get to that when I can get to that. Train the people around you that you are not hyper-responsive, that they might have to wait 5 minutes for you to respond, and they'll be okay, right? Let's set some boundaries. How about this? How about guard the edges of your day? We saw last week that over half of millennials check their phones as the first and last act of every day. Last thing I do before I go to bed, I put my phone down. First thing I do is pick it up. Why not guard the edges of your day and say, you know what? I'm going to have a technology-free time for this much time after I wake up or this much time before I go to bed or a little of both. Just guard the edges of your day before getting up or going to bed. Or how about this? When you get home from work, why not turn your phone off for a period of time, right? Just say, all right, I'm walking in from the garage. The day's been busy. Now might be the time for me to catch up on emails or whatever. No. How about turn the phone off for an hour, 2 hours, and just reconnect with your family? Why not have the whole family have a technology-free time from 5 to 7 o'clock or whenever everyone gets home for an hour just to reconnect with each other? Or why not establish a technology-free room in your home? This room, no technology, no phones, no iPads, no laptops, come in this room, and then force people to go there, right? Entice them there somehow with food and games and fun, but say, we're going to spend time in this technology-free zone together as a family. Or this one's quite obvious. I shouldn't have to say this, but I do have to say this. Why not turn your phone off when you're with other people? Or leave it in the car, or not even bring it. And we have all experienced the irritation or the pain of just really engaging with someone and just watch them every time the text comes in, they look at their phone, they just keep looking at their phone while you're trying to talk to them. I mean, nothing really says there is better than here than choosing a text message over the friend who's talking to you right in front of you, right? And so we need to just turn it off. We need to unplug. And so the stack party is becoming quite popular. You can see the stack of phones there, that when we get together with our friends, maybe we're at a meal or whatever, everyone stacks their smartphones up on top of each other. And like the first one to grab for it before the meal's over pays the bill, right? Let's just stack our phones, let's put them away, let's just engage. It's like a social media guard, but you look better, all right? Or how about this? When you're on your phone in public and you're texting or whatever, and someone approaches you to engage you, whether a stranger or a friend or a family member, don't do this. Oh, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. You know, and just like go away from me because this is more important than you, and I want to finish this. But how about this? Hey, good to see you. So glad. Let's connect with one another. I'm going to put my phone away as a sign that you're more important than this. The text can wait. The Facebook status update can wait. The email can wait. But you're right here. And here is better than there. Now is better than then. And so I'm going to engage with you right now. What about some boundaries to help us in our relationship with God? How can we limit our technology so we can be present with Him? How about putting devices away when we're spending time with God? Don't even have them in the same room. Instead, get a notepad, keep it next to you when you're praying, when you're reading the Bible, and as things come to your mind about, I need to update my Facebook status, or I need to put that new picture up on Facebook, or I need to return that text or that email, just write it down, put it on your notepad, and then release it. You'll get to it later, and then go back to being present with God in the Bible or in prayer or listening to music or whatever it is you're doing to connect to Him. Focus on Him. Or when we attend worship, if you can, power down your device. Go to airplane mode. Leave it in the car. Turn it off. Right? Again, we all know how easy it is to get distracted as we go to that Bible verse. Oh, Luke chapter 5, verse 15, and I looked that up. Hey, while I'm here, I'm going to check Facebook, or I'm going to respond to this text, or I'm going to check the weather for later for the picnic or whatever. I mean, it's so easy to do that. But just be present with God for 75 minutes. Just give Him your full attention for 75 minutes as singing and Scripture and the message. And not only will that pay dividends in your relationship with God, but if we can learn to stay completely distraction-free for 75 minutes, that will overflow into the rest of our lives, giving us the ability to kind of focus on other things and be present with other people when we need to. Well, these are just a few ideas. The question is, again, what do you need to do to limit the reach of technology into your life so you could be more present with the people around you and with a God who loves you? And so I'm just going to ask you this week, would you be prayerfully kind of considering that? Would you put together a plan? Again, on the outlines you have in your bulletin, there's just 4 questions. Consider those questions. Write down some things. Put together a plan. How am I going to set some boundaries to maybe be more present with God and others? And then once you have a plan, once you have an idea, write it down. Study after study after study shows that if I write something down, I am like 10 times more likely to do it than I just have good intentions and think about it. So write it down. So make a plan, write it down, and then experiment. Say, is this working for me? Is this helping me be more present with people? Do I need more boundaries? Is this one not working? Do I need to change this up? Is this helping me be present with God? Experiment, change it up. Let it be a living, breathing document, because technology is going to continue to change. And so our boundaries need to continue to change. So this week, if you're in a small group, we're going to be discussing the idea of putting together a plan and setting boundaries. If you're not in a small group and you want to still participate, you can go to our website and our sermon page. You can download a document that has discussion questions. Get around the table as a family. Discuss it as a family. Pull some people together at work and say, hey, what about this technology thing? Let's figure it out. I've got some discussion questions. Let's talk about these things and set some boundaries. As you set boundaries, what would be great, why don't you go to our Facebook page, Newday Network, and tell other people what you're doing. We can learn from one another a great use of technology right here in our church. But let's develop boundaries for technology to take control of it before it takes control of us. Here is better than there. Now is better than then.